Beau Bosko is a Warner Brothers Bosko cartoon from 1933. This is directed by Friz Freleng and Hugh Harman, written by Friz Freleng, with a voice cast including Rochelle Hudson, Rudolf Ising, and Johnny Murray. And this one is okay, leaning slightly more towards me not liking it. In general, it's not too bad, and by that I mean the animation is okay, the pacing is okay, the music and sound effects are fine, there's a decent amount of characters, but I personally just found it kind of boring. So part of me thinks that that's my fault and to do with my personal taste, but also I just feel like the cartoon wasn't that creative, wasn't that interesting. If anybody feels differently though, that's absolutely fine. Bosko is a soldier in the Foreign Legion, and he has to capture a character called Alley Oop. And I will say I loved Bosko's facial expression when he was handed the piece of paper with Alley Oop's face on it, and we have a close-up. We don't normally get that many close-ups of Bosko like this, but we get to kind of see his reaction, and I thought that was well done. So there were definitely some good bits of animation, and I know I said the pacing was fine. It actually was slow to begin with. I'd say the first minute or two of a 6-ish, 7-ish minute cartoon were kind of really slow. So let's say the first quarter of the cartoon was definitely quite slow, but once it got going, once the narrative was established, it was fine. There wasn't anything about it that I think didn't work, other than I just wasn't finding it entertaining. So part of me thinks that might just be down to my personal preference. But as I said, I also just don't think it was that creative. I don't think what we were watching, well, what I was watching, was that fascinating or that interesting to look at. The animation was absolutely fine, but I found that it was just kind of dull. But then again, I'm not that bothered about this kind of narrative in general. But that doesn't mean I was never going to like it, because there are plenty of cartoons that are similar to this or have a similar theme, and I actually find them enjoyable, but unfortunately Beau Bosko isn't one of them, and I don't really have many other extensive thoughts on this. It is quite simply, I didn't find it interesting, maybe slightly on the boring side rather than just being average, but the animation itself is okay, slow to begin with, but once it got going, after about 2 minutes, I'd say once Bosko received that bit of paper with Alley Oop's face on it, that's when things really began to pick up. It just took us a little longer than I would have liked to get to that point. And the characters, we have a decent amount of characters, so I think that helped it to be, for me, not a completely boring cartoon, because even though I found the action to be not interesting, we do have a lot of characters, so there was usually always something to look at. So it's not amazing, to say the very least. I am willing to admit that that might partly be down to personal preference, but that being said, I still didn't love it. If you're already a Bosko fan, give it a watch, but if you're just looking for a good cartoon, then unless the narrative actually sounds like something that would genuinely appeal to you, I'd say Beau Bosko might not be the best one to go with.